Assistance APIs are very powerful in creating AI assistants. So, in this series, we'll be learning a lot of things about AI assistants, especially focusing on what are the things we can do with Assistance API. And in this video, we will cover assistants. And in the future series, we will learn other things like threads, messages, runs, code interpreter, retrieval, function calling, and more hands on projects. So you might aware of chat completion APIs. In chat completion APIs, it just takes a message and it returns some response. So there are some things we can do more with Assistance API. They are like manage conversation threads for context management. Let's say you have a history of messages. With chat completions, there is no way to track all the histories automatically. But with Assistance API, all the messages within a thread are tracked and stored automatically for you. And when someone asks a new question, Assistance API knows what are the relevant context we can add to enhance the response. Then it has access to tools such as code interpreter. With code interpreter, you can run some Python code and get some response. Then our large language model uses those response to modify its answers. Then retrieval. With chat completions, you cannot use any files directly, but with Assistance API, you can upload any number of files and we can store all the files in vector databases. And when someone asks some new questions, it will retrieve everything from vector database. Then it adds those relevant chunks as a context to the model. And function calling. Function calling is helpful to call external APIs and functions. And it also supports multiple files, more than 20 files like CSV, PDF, and many more. And asynchronous support. In chat completions, when you ask some question, you have to wait until it responds. Or you can also do streaming. But with here, Assistance API, it has asynchronous support, meaning you can run some object and then you don't have to wait for it and you can retrieve what's happening after a few seconds. Then Assistance API also can generate graphs, document, and various file types. So let's get started. So in this tutorial, we will focus more on assistants. So I will start with how to create an assistant, how to add files to an assistant, and many more. First of all, we are going to create some files. So let's get started. So I have a folder docs. In that docs, I might have few files. So I have three files. So prompt engineering and teaching with AI. So these two PDF I downloaded from OpenAI blog. I exported the blog as a PDF and I stored here to show this demo. And we also have a titanic.csv file. So with this, we will create a few files and we will create an assistant when we do more things with that. So I'm creating a client object, which is OpenAI. So client is loaded. Now I can input some files. File input, client.files.create. So here I have to open the file, not just file name. We have to open the file and we have to pass the file object, not just files. Open docs engineering and read more. Purpose. So the purpose is assistance. There are two purposes currently file support. One is assistant and other is fine tuning. So currently we are doing assistance. We use assistant for here. So now we have created a file. We can check this file response, file input dot model dump. You have a file ID and some bytes when it was created, what's the file name, purpose. Now with this, we can create an assistant. So my assistant equal to client.beta.assistants. Currently this is in beta. If you are watching this video after a few months, you don't have to use beta. You can directly use client.assistants. But for now, we have to use beta. Assistants.create. And assistants can have a few instructions. So instructions, you are a personal data science tutor. Then we can name it data science tutor. Then tools. we can add a few tools. So currently I'm going to add code interpreter and retrieval. We have to add as dictionary with type, code interpreter, then one more type. Yeah. So now model, we have to connect some model with this assistant. Currently assistants support two models, GPT 3.5 Turbo 1106 and GPT-4 1106 Preview. And in future, it also supports our own fine-tuned models. So I'm using GPT-4 11. Then we can add some files, file IDs, file input.id. Yeah. With this, we can create an assistant. Let's run this. It says it's done. Let's check the response. My assistant dot model dump. So you can see assistant has an ID and date, description, file IDs, instructions, some model, name, object. This is an assistant. And tools, we added two tools. One is code interpreter and other is retrieval. Now let's add some assistant file. Create assistant file. So I'm going to add one more file, another file equal to client.files.create file. We have to open docs teaching with AI PDF and we have to read. Then purpose, this is assistance. We created another file. Now let's add this file to the assistant file client dot beta dot assistance dot files. Now you can do create. We are creating an assistant file. So that's why it's assistance dot files dot create assistant ID and file ID. So sometimes once you create an assistant, we have to delete some files and add new files. So this is one easiest way to do that. There is one more way. We will see that at the bottom, but for now, this is the easiest way. So now the second file, another file is attached to our assistant. When we retrieve the assistant, we will see two files. Currently, you are seeing only one file ID, but in future, when we do retrieval, you will see two files there. Now list all the assistants. My assistants, or all assistants, client.beta.assistants.list. In list, you can say order descending. You'll see the most recent ones first, then limit 10. So you will see first 10 assistants. All assistants dot model dump. Let's run this. So currently we have created an assistant and we are seeing that assistant. And you can see this assistant has two files that we created recently. Assistant files equal to client dot beta dot assistants files dot list. You can pass some assistant ID, assistant files dot model dump. You will see we have created two files, one file ID and another file ID. And you can see first ID and last ID's details. Now we are going to retrieve an assistant. So this is important. For example, let's say you're building some AI assistants. You usually build assistant one time. And in future, we have assistant ID stored somewhere and we retrieve the assistant and we use the assistant for our users. So let's do that. My assistant is client.beta.assistants.retrieve. Then you can pass assistant ID. Then let's check my assistant.model dump. So you can see we retrieved our assistant and you can see it has code interpreter, retrieval and two files. This looks good. Now let's say you wanted to retrieve some assistant file and let's say you wanted to use that assistant file in somewhere. You can use this code, retrieve assistant file. Assistant file is client. This is correct. Assistant ID, my assistant ID. Then file ID is assistant file.id. Now let's check what we have got. So we have got the ID, assistant ID, and when it was created and what's this object. Now let's say you wanted to modify this assistant. Let's write some code for that. So this is helpful when you keep on creating new features, like adding more functions to the assistant as a tool. You can modify previous assistants. Maybe what we can do is we can create a function and we can add function calling to our assistants. So far, our assistant has only two tools. One is code interpreter and retrieval. Now we are going to add one more one more tools as a function calling. So now I'm going to create a quick and easy function, def branded display string. Let's use my name, colon, string. Maybe let's convert everything to lawyer and replace space with underscore. Okay, so this is the branded display. Let's say we wanted our assistant to respond all the messages in this way. You can use branded display as a function. Now we are going to use this function as a tool. To do that, we cannot pass the function directly. What we have to do is we have to create a JSON structure for this function. In the JSON structure, we add a few details like what's the function name, what are its parameters, and what are the types of parameters, and is there any required input. Let's create some branded JSON as function. Then in function, we have name, branded display, then parameters, object, then we have properties. So in properties, we have input as string, and we have to mention the type string, and we can have some description, the string to display. Then we can pass required string. I think this looks good. Let's run this. We have created a JSON structure for the functions. Now we can store this function in a dictionary. Functions, branded display. Now I can add this function to our assistant. Now let's update the assistant. So we are in modify assistant. We are going to add this function calling to as a tool to our assistant. Let's do that. My updated assistant client.beta.assistants.update. We can pass assistant ID. Maybe let's delete everything. I'm going to update only the tools, not instructions and others. So tools. In my tools, I'm going to add code interpreter, retrieval, and branded JSON. So this looks good. Let's run this. Now let's check our updated assistance model dump. You will see in tools, we have code interpreter, we have retrieval, and we have a function. So we have added 3 tools in our assistants. So now let's delete assistant files. This is also important when you do real assistance for your clients. So you have to delete assistant file if it's not usable. Deleted assistant file, delete, and you can pass assistant ID and file ID. Now let's print the response. Deleted assistant file, model done. So we have successfully deleted. Now we can delete the assistant. So let's say you are doing some hobby projects and after experimentations, you wanted to delete some assistant. Otherwise, you'll be paying a few cents every day or something. So we can delete the assistants here. Response client.beta assistants.delete my assistant.id. Then check the response. We have deleted assistant. We can check all assistants. It should be the list. There is nothing. I think in this session, we learned quite a bit about assistant. We learned all the functions. Now, in our future series of the sessions, we will be learning about other things like threads, messages, runs, how to do code interpretation, and how to use retrieve and how to do function calling. We'll be learning all the other stuff in the next series of these lessons. Thanks for watching. Thank you.